Hello and welcome to Nerdarchy, for nerds by nerds. I'm Nerdic Steve, and today I'm hanging out with Cesare Orlando. How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing grand. Words. Yep. How you doing, Dave?
Good. So it's great to have you on. This is like the second and a half time.
Yeah. That
Uh,
was
you
that
know,
was fun.
you were on with the rest of the crew from the General Adventuring Company, and we had a power flash here, which disrupted that, and then we got that rescheduled, and now I'm kind of hunting you guys down individually to
Yeah.
because I know you all do other things as well. So I thought it'd be cool to have you come on and talk D&D and gaming and the other cool things you're involved in. Speaking of which, if you'd introduce yourself and tell people what it is you do.
Definitely. Like Dave said, my name is Cesare Orlando. I am I pentuple through, I don't know how many things. I do all of the things. If it's creative, I love it. But I also am very entrepreneurial in spirit, so I like finding new, interesting, and creative ways to make money at the things that I love doing. And I also help people do that as well. So I am a content creator. I am an entertainer. I've been a singer, dancer, actor, musician for a majority of my life. Content is kind of like my main gig right now, photo and video creation for businesses, brands, and individuals. And I am currently converting a school bus so that I can take the show on the road and travel and see a lot more of the country and get out of the isolation that we've been in for
It,
20 months or so now.
it's got to be a lot cheaper than like renting someplace in LA.
Oh my gosh, yes. When I lived in LA, I was there for 3 years, and
Yeah.
I had a 475 square foot studio apartment in Van Nuys that was $1,200 when I first moved out there, and then I was just like, what am I doing? This is
Yeah.
ridiculous. So yeah, not spending that much money on
Well,
rent is lovely.
I had friends that Devil's Luck Gaming. They do like an in person stream where they all like dress up and stuff, and they were living in New York City, and then they moved down to South Jersey, like really close to actually where we film,
Yeah.
and they pay around the same or less than they were paying for before with like 3 to 4 times as much space.
Oh yeah. Oh
So
yeah. Yeah, it's one of those things. I've always really enjoyed kind of being surrounded by all of my gadgets and toys. So I always tried to look for live work situations to where like having a warehouse and converting part of it to be, a loft, if you will, to live out of, and then having the creative space right there because having to like commute and drive to and from work just never seemed like it was a fun thing, especially driving in LA. Oof.
it's
So,
not. It's
no.
definitely, I can confirm, not a fun thing, even if you don't live in LA.
Yeah, I did the whole driving for Lyft and Uber as like a side gig for a bit, and when I did that in LA, there wasn't a day that went by that I didn't see a minimum of 3 accidents at a time or like some incident of road rage going on. So I was like, if I could just bypass that, roll out of bed, eat some breakfast, and get right into like making music or producing a podcast or working on a wedding film, like that's always just superb. It makes it a lot faster, and I have more time during the day to goof off and do other silly things.
Just driving a lot, like, just like opens your eyes to that stuff. Like most of what I did before this was, driving. Like I did heavy construction. I drove attack trucks. So there was a lot of
Mm.
driving involved in that. I drove lumber trucks, and it's just like, yeah. Just the odds are in your favor of seeing something, and you're just hoping that you're not like one of the ones in the
Yeah,
something at some point.
yeah, uh huh. Yeah, because all of a sudden you're like, what the? Oh, pff, and yeah, it's not good. It's not no
Yeah, I
bueno.
remember like seeing a tractor trailer like on its side on the turnpike in the opposite direction one day coming home from a job. I'm like, all right, where's the car at?
Dang.
Sure enough, there it was, and like I don't think there was any survivors. Another time I seen uh the tractor trailer off to the side, and the trailer part of it looked like someone opened it with a Swiss Army knife or something, because apparently he had
God.
jackknifed into the signs overhead, and it just sliced it like way open.
Wow.
Cars on fire, motorcycles being swept up. It's
Yeah.
just like,
Yeah. And it's like, how do you not look away, or how do you not focus on the road and like not rubberneck and try and
Yeah,
see what's
yeah.
going on? Like that's the stuff that you see in movies that you're like, this is not what it would look like, and then you see it in real life and you're like, oh wow, no,
Yeah, I guess it really does. That's
that's
where they
really
got
does
that
what it
from.
did. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and speaking of driving, just in general, being in a car and just in that seated position for so long is so bad for your body. Like it wrecks your lower back. I couldn't do it for a certain amount of time driving for Lyft because being in a car for 8+ hours, just your
I
hips
can
get all
confirm it
locked
does
up.
not get better in a truck.
Yeah, it's rough. You're sitting up nice and tall and higher and above everybody, but that seated position for extended times, man, it gets you.
Yeah, I used to like commute an hour each way to work. And then like the job itself was just a lot of driving. So it's like like and if you and like if the jobs we were working on were like really far away, then it'd be even more. So there was days where like my commute was about 6 hours round trip.
Gosh, I bet you listened to a lot of D&D podcasts.
Yeah, I used to like that's when I would listen to a lot of audiobooks.
Yeah,
Audible was definitely my friend back in those days. I mean, I had nothing better to do. But
I was
yeah.
just listening to his Dark Instruments, or his Dark Instruments. They have the HBO series right now.
His Dark
That's
Materials?
Materials. Thank you.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
thinking like
With the
Mortal
demons.
Instruments, Dark Materials. Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. I was listening to that on my way to and from Northern California this last week when I was not commuting but flying for work up there, and it was nice. Audible is definitely, yeah, it's a godsend for sure.
So Brian Smith has a question, and you might be the right person to ask this one to.
What's up,
And
Brian?
any advice for a new game store owner? My cousin is opening a store in a small West Michigan city. How do I help him keep the business alive? Seems like an
Yeah,
odd time to open a gaming store.
I love it. That is super bold.
Yeah.
And the insurgence of like mom and pop stores right now, I think is, especially with, I'm not sure what the real estate market is like out there, but in California, there have been so many businesses that have gone and closed, and these real estate owners and developers that own the buildings are really cutting prices as far as like getting in at a cheaper cost because they want somebody in there. So I love the idea of a gaming store being opened because it reinforces that sense of community. Any advice as far as like things that you can do, maybe content wise, that can help get the word out about the gaming store is one, make as much content as possible. If they themselves or somebody that works at the place enjoys taking photos or making little videos, find every little niche of nerdum that is involved in the gaming store and make little bits of content about it. You know, if you get new sets of minis that are coming in, set them up and make like a nice little photo shoot with them, or like have an open box version of it and set up a little diorama and do some little photography or little video skits. Post on every platform that you can that is free to post on, be it Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, all of the things. And then use a lot of hashtags. People are still filtered through with hashtags. And if there is a little bit of money for marketing, run targeted ads toward very narrow niche. You know, if you have Star Trek apparel or other types of game things related to different TTRPGs, literally target people that are interested in that exact TTRPG or that like that particular Star Wars movie. Having targeted ads run on social media is still one of the most affordable ways versus like paying $1,000 a month to put a billboard on a street that when people are driving by they're probably not going to see because they're actually scrolling on their phone as they're driving past,
Yeah.
that billboard. So content is always kind of like my go-to answer for that, and being as creative and having as much fun with the content as possible. Not taking it too seriously is a big thing. not like judging the content, because the majority of the time in marketing, like people need to see something up to 7 times before they like make a decision to go and buy it or to go and like see the place or the store or something like that. So as long as you're constantly filling that algorithm or that feed with new little bits and pieces, you'll be at the front of the person's mind. And if they're like, oh, well, I do need to go get some dice because I'm going to do my first D&D game, and like, or I'm going to get my kid into it, and you're going to go, like, having that in-person experience where you can like feel and touch like the tangible things is way more fun than just like, oh, that's pretty, purchase, you know?
Yeah.
So that would be my advice. Make lots of content.
I feel like you got to have a lot of events too. Like you have to,
Oh, yeah.
like, because you're competing with Amazon and all these, big box stores, and
Yeah.
you have to make it an experience. If you're gonna have if anyone has a website, I'm always baffled when I see companies with websites but they don't have a blog attached to it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big proponent of article marketing and content marketing,
Yeah.
like you're talking about. But the article marketing in some ways is even better than social media because it lives forever and it works under different rules.
Mm-hmm.
You're not really beholden to algorithms as much as
Right.
it's more about like, what is this about?
Google
And then
search content. Yeah.
yeah, and it's so much easier to target local than it is national or global. So you
Yeah.
can really drill down as a local business with that kind of content as well.
And you own the distribution. Like, it's your
Yeah.
website. You're not dependent on somebody else's algorithm that changes this or next month. That is all of a sudden going to make it so much more difficult for people that already do follow you to see the stuff that you're posting. So yeah,
Or if that
absolutely.
platform even just goes away for you.
Goes away. Yes. R.I.P. Vine.
Yeah.
One of the most fun and interesting platforms, just gone and kind of gets reskinned as something else, and then you got to start all over again.
Yeah.
Eliminating that chance by having your own setup is huge. And like you're saying with articles, like all of the content that you're writing, all those words that are coming up in like the HTML coding, like that's searchable. Like if anybody searches on YouTube or on Google, like that is going to help get you more in the forefront. And I'm always a little hesitant now to recommend live events just because of the state of the world, but
Yeah.
I love live events.
But I feel like that's
Experiences
the
are everything.
I feel like that is the kind of the lifeblood of a gaming store, right? And
Oh, absolutely.
unfortunately, like they're gonna have to figure out how to make people feel comfortable and be okay with the place, and also what is their particular stance on it. Like,
Yeah.
depending where you're at in Michigan, can be a little rough depending on what your views are, from my understanding.
Lead with empathy. Like,
Yeah,
just always consider like what the person coming into the store, like, you want them to be comfortable, because if they're comfortable and they're having a good time, they're way more likely to buy and come back again. And if you're super friendly and not necessarily controversial or really hardcore with your opinions and viewpoints, then the interaction is just going to be overall way smoother. So make friends, have a good time.
yeah. Well, you know what? Like, so we use a lot of affiliate programs and affiliate links, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we got some flack from one of the fans over it because they felt we were pushing people away from their flags.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, well, you know what? One, it does help us in the channel, but two, like, not everyone has a flag, and just because even if you do have one, it doesn't mean they actually deserve your business. Maybe a controversial take, but you know what? As a customer, they have to earn your business, and I've dealt with local stores and local businesses where like the experience was bad. I didn't want to go back. So like that's another thing to figure out too. If you're running a store like that, it's so much more important that the experience that the customer has at their first point of contact is a good one, and you have people that really want to be there, that are working there and feel satisfied, which is also really hard for a small business because they're making like you're a small business, you don't have a lot of money. If you have employees, like you're probably not equipped to pay them super well, especially in the beginning.
Sure. Also collaborations as much as you can. Like if there are other businesses that are, adjacent to what it is that you're doing. Maybe there's a comic store that doesn't sell gaming stuff, but the two of you together can have, a nice pop-up outdoor event at something, and your two audiences can cross over and
Well,
can help each other.
there's also another thing that I've heard and seen people do that is really cool, and as a store might actually be a good idea, is to make those kind of collaborations with breweries or bars during a
Mm.
weeknight when maybe they're slow, and have events at those places, and maybe you can draw in some customers that you wouldn't normally get access to,
Oh
and they
yeah.
tend to be fun, fun events as well.
I would love to go to like a brewery for a Wednesday night like tavern feel where like it's
Yeah.
all lit and decorated in like a really cool way, and there's just a bunch of tables of people like bringing their home games to like sit around and like have finger foods and just play 4 or 5 out whatever it is of D&D. Like that would be so much fun.
There was a group called Drunks and Dragons,
Yeah.
and like they would find bars where they could host D&D events, and they would have a bunch of DMs that would show up, and you could just show up and play in their games, back in the before times, that is.
Yeah.
um and over in Philadelphia, which was kind of cool, and they would get like a bunch of companies to donate stuff and have be able to do giveaways. So like, yeah, like you said, there are definitely partnerships you can do. I've seen like them, like they were able to even partner with like conventions like PAX Unplugged, which I was really
Very
surprised
nice.
because it was a small organization, for them to make inroads where they were giving PAX Unplugged tickets away.
Heck yeah. I mean, and even if it's like something that you are spending money out of pocket, like we were talking right before we went live about Gen Con. Like
Yeah,
if you went and bought 2 tickets and we're like, hey, we're giving away 2 tickets to Gen Con,
yeah,
subscribe, do all of the blah 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 blahs, tell your friends, or come in. We're gonna be giving them away live in the store on this day. You must be present to win. People want to go to Gen Con, like this. That's a decent ticket price. Like they'll show up for
yeah,
sure.
and in in the larger scheme of marketing, it's fairly inexpensive.
Exactly.
So yeah,
Good
holding events
question.
like that.
That was a good one. I like that.
So, how did you get started in gaming in D&D?
So it was kind of funny. I grew up in a very religious upbringing, and so
Oh, that's usually very conducive to playing D&D and RPGs.
yeah, 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 yeah. Totally. It was great. No, I had heard of Dungeons and Dragons, but the whole satanic panic that happened in the 70s, 80s, and so forth, definitely steered my parents away from any type of thing that was magic related and sorcery and all of this, devil worshipping propaganda that was out about it. I just turned 36 a couple of weeks ago, and so the early or late 80s, early 90s would have been a fantastic time for me to get into Dungeons and Dragons because it is full of all of the things that I have done my entire life and absolutely love. I love acting and improv. I love collaborative storytelling. Um, I have gone to the Renaissance Fair. Like, it's been a family ordeal. We always would go on Mother's Day because my grandmother absolutely loved it and she's the matriarch of the family. So dressing up and LARPing has been part of, like, all of the great things about D&D. Like, I've done all of them. And it wasn't until about a year and a half, close to 2 years ago, that my editor, who works with my company, he would come into the office in the studio a lot of the times, and he would have up on the screen different D&D streams going. And as he's like kind of working through and cutting and editing all these different little projects and stuff, he has this stream on in the background. So I kind of was just like hearing what was going on, and I was like, "Oh, what are you watching?" He was like, "Oh, it's a D&D stream." I was like, "Oh, that's cool." He's like, "Do you play?" No, no, never played. I've heard of it. I know friends that have played that have enjoyed it. And after a decent amount of time of him kind of like having this on in the background, I all of a sudden I'm finding myself, I'm like editing, I'm just like, wait, what just happened over there? What was going? That sounded pretty interesting. And so he had gotten me interested in watching it. And one time he was just like, hey, do you want to play a round, a session of D&D to see if you like it? And so we got a couple of friends together. None of them had played before. I think one had played a little bit, and we did one little like session 0 of like, this is kind of how it works. We're using 3.5 mechanics because that was what he was most familiar with. I made a druid that had a wolf companion, and because I have a dog, and so I named the wolf companion after my dog. You know, sticking close to what you know. And then it didn't go anywhere from there. And then oddly enough, I went to Hawaii. I went to Maui to visit my younger sister who lives out there, and her husband and kids, and was going to be there for 2 weeks. And this was right in the middle of March of 2020. So I had 3 flights that were canceled over the course of 3 months trying to get back to the mainland. So I ended up staying. I had nothing to do. Like, I was working with a bunch of real estate agents. Like, they all ended up canceling a lot of their work that they were doing. Like, I had some remote editing that I could do, but for the most part, like, everything stopped when the pandemic hit.
Oh no! How close were you to panhandling?
Uh, if it wasn't for my sister and like them having a place in Hawaii, I would have been a beach bum, because
Yeah.
there's no way I would have been able to afford like staying at hotels in Maui for 3 months.
That's
So
crazy.
it was intense, and during that time, while like my business was crumbling around me, um, I was like, I have all of this time during the day. I could, granted, there is no other place I would want to be stranded at the start of the pandemic than in Hawaii. Like, their house had an insane bi-coastal view of the island, so you could
Was your
see both
dog with
sides.
you?
She was not.
Oh
That was
no.
like, that was the most. She's actually, she's registered as my emotional support animal because I like have a lot of anxiety and other things. But the the reunion video of when I got home and she saw me for the first time in 3 months was ridiculous. She almost peed all over herself. She was so excited. But in that time, I was like, I'm just gonna start watching these D&D streams, and I completely binged the entirety of Critical Role season 2, up until the point when it was like live shows and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I started watching a couple of other streams and started learning, not by reading anything, just through different shows and figuring out which like mechanics were their homebrew stuff and which stuff was like actual 5e appropriate. I got the whole D&D Beyond account and like actually had the digital books so that I can just read and better understand and just know a bit of the lore and like be able to separate, oh okay, that's a homebrew world that they're in currently versus like actual 5e raw rules and things like that. And kind of with entertainment and acting and stuff, just watching and absorbing, I started learning a lot. And so when I got back, I just kind of like dove in head first and was just like, well, I'm going to play all of the games that I can. That's really hard to do. Definitely should have taken off like bite-sized amounts. But
Yeah.
I started playing in a live game in Long Beach around a table. And I was, because I had watched a lot of streams, I didn't really want to just be in a game where we were going to spend so much time in creating this world. I wanted to be a part of a game that was creating content around the game, because IP and intellectual property is something that is very valuable in this world. And if you're creating stuff that is, one, showing off your potential acting capabilities, and if you like doing voices, or potentially looking for voice acting work, having a catalog or a portfolio that's based around this game is something that's, potentially usable down the line. So started doing that. That game unfortunately fell apart. Then it was just like, okay, well, if somebody else is going to be really like in charge of all of the content creation and studio stuff, it's not really going to get me all of the things that I am wanting from it. Plus, not having kind of like control over being a content creator and like knowing production and stuff like that, not having control over quality and direction of what the brand where the brand is going was kind of something that I wanted to readjust and shift in. So starting my own, being part of a group that is very focused on the content creation and the production quality, was something I started looking for. And in the Facebook groups and forums and stuff, you'll always find people that are looking for players. So after numerous months of kind of like searching through and doing random one-shots here and there, ran into a buddy, Adam Sowards, who is out of Colorado, and a couple of the people that are in New York and New Jersey that all formed the General Adventuring Company. And now we're doing the thing. We're creating the show and the content as we go, and learning other cool tabletop systems that I am very ignorant to. And I love being the one who's like at the beginning, "Hi, what's up? I'm Ceasare Orlando. I have no clue what I'm doing. We're gonna figure this out together," because it definitely like alleviates a pressure of like I'm not a professional. I've been a professional actor. I've been a professional like singer, performer, and all this stuff. But I don't know how this game works. Like, I have a sheet that's telling me the rules right now, and I'm still confused.
Yeah. Have you run any games yet?
No. I absolutely want to, but I am terrified because I know how much work, like, really good DMs put into it. And if they're not putting that much work, they've been doing it for so long that it's second nature to them.
Yeah.
And like as I have a few different like story plot ideas for one shots that I would want to run, because they're very railroad. Like you have an arc and you kind of like go through and your characters go through this
linear
story with you. Yeah. You know, it's good, but at the same time, a lot of like the magic that you see really happen in these types of games comes from the DM like being like, "Hey, here's this thing that you can do," and then all the players are like, "Well, we don't want to do. We're gonna do this instead." And it's just like,
That's
okay.
like D&D in a nutshell, basically.
Let's take this 7 hours of just throw it out the window and cool. You kidnapped the bride and now you all are fleeing the country. And
I feel like that's how improv no prep DMs are born.
Yes.
Like, that happens one too many times and it breaks them. They're like, I'll never prep again.
Never doing it. All right, guys. This it was going to be a long form campaign, but you now have the entire country chasing you down and hunting you. What are you going to do? Because you tell me, because I have no idea.
Actually, though, sometimes I find that it's a lot easier to do a long form campaign, like if you don't establish it in the beginning and you just see where the players go. Because, like, eventually, like, they always inevitably seem to latch onto something that becomes really important to them. And if you can just keep tweaking that and pulling at that, like, you never really have to do anything. They're always just going to go after that like a pit bull with a bone, so.
Yeah. There was a really good YouTube video. I can't remember the creator who posted it, but it was comparing the Lord of the Rings trilogy to the Hobbit trilogy, and how the Lord of the Rings campaign is definitely more open format, and the Hobbit is definitely more linear and way more railroaded in its storytelling than the Lord of the Rings. And I loved that. And he breaks it down and kind of like goes and shares how the different characters, if they were players, how their randomness and chaos was the thing that had like created the entire story, versus in The Hobbit, like with Smog and all of like these predetermined things, they were just like, boom, no, this is what had happened and that caused this to happen, and then you guys reacted and that caused this to happen. So it was much more linear based, and the free form of it all really gives I think the players and the characters that sense of realism in the fantasy world of like, we're not on this predetermined fate path. Like the choices that we make are actually forming this entire universe as we go, which is beautiful and chaotic, and I love it. I'm definitely a fan of the chaos.
Brian wants to know what's your favorite D&D class?
Ooh, so again, I'm fairly new to D&D, so I haven't played that many those many variations, but I'm a big fan of multi-classing. One of my DMs says it's because I'm a ridiculous min-maxer. I disagree a little bit. Like, I definitely like optimizing like a person's characteristics and like physicality around the stuff that they do, because that's kind of real life as well, you know. But my first character that I loved him so much was a halfling shadow monk, and I was gonna multi-class him into a monk rogue assassin combo, and to be honest, that definitely was a bit of the min-maxing stuff. But it was very plot-driven and story-based, off of a few of my favorite book series that I was kind of like pulling inspiration from. So monks are always really fun to play because martial characters, there's a bit less that goes into thinking and panicking in your initiative order when it's your turn coming up. You're like, oh my god, I have 50 things to do with all of my spells and slots, or what if I'm burning sorcery points and all these other things. I'm gonna go up and punch the crap out of this guy. Cool. All right. Do you want to describe how you do it? Well, let's see how it works. Okay, I hit him twice. That's not enough. I'm going to hit him 2 more times. Cool. And then you can like physically describe, if you're a fan of any type of martial arts movies, the style in which you would want to do that. So I'm a big fan of monks. A couple of my other current character builds, I have a barbarian druid, which is just slightly broken because of the fun magical artifacts that my DM is just like, here you go.
Oh,
It's like,
nice.
I was gonna build the more barbarian side out, but now that you gave me this amazing staff of summoning, druid it is. Um,
Yeah.
and then I have a paladin sorcerer, a Sorkadin, that I think is at currently is character level 7, so there's a nice little mix of the two there. Um, I like Dex build characters a lot.
Dex
And
is the super stat, so that
it's the
checks.
best.
That checks
Yeah.
with your power gaming.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I'm also a fan of like the charisma builds. Primarily because I like talking a lot, and I
Yeah.
like kind of not necessarily being the face, but being somebody who is doing the persuasion, doing the intimidation, or something of the like. My character for the General Adventuring Company is a Ranger Rogue combo, and he's a Gloomstalker Ranger. Um, and he doesn't have a subclass in his rogue abilities yet because he just got his ranger magic. He's a little low level boy. He's only level 4, um, but he's fun. He's a dragonborn ranger rogue. So I always try and like pick something out of the ordinary and go against normal like stereotypes and tropes.
Yeah.
Most of the time you think like dragonborn, like stocky build, like I'm gonna go and like really powerful, and I wanted like a salamander, like a mushu style body for the dragonborn, more of the Asian influence for the dragon
Nice.
physicality. Um, and yeah, I like breaking the normalcy of kind of what everybody expects for different characters and those tropes, because it makes it more fun, makes it more unique. I feel like I'm creating something new versus just carbon copying a bunch of other stuff. But
Gloomstalkers hit really hard, and also like in the dark they are invisible. So
yeah, it's okay. I'm as I hear myself, I'm definitely understanding more of my DMs who's like, you min max a lot. I'm like, no, I don't. It's all plot driven. I can absolutely justify. I'm really good at like attaching it to backstory and plot points in order to make it not seem like I'm min maxing. But I enjoy mechanics. I
I've,
enjoy like looking at the rules and being like, okay, well, if these are the things that I'm allowed to operate within,
mhm.
I'm gonna do as many of the things as possible, but I'm also gonna like pull out as many types of shenanigans as possible to see like how I can break it in some manner, or just like how I can keep the DM on their toes, because I like the out of the box thinking that just D&D in general, when you kind of like step into whatever character that you're playing, if it's not somebody that is if you're not like playing yourself in D&D, like having that different perspective on all of just the regular interactions that you're kind of like stepping into that character or that role, is one, it alters you as a person because you yourself aren't saying how you would respond. It's how your character would respond in that situation based on their life experiences. So I really appreciate and enjoy that. And at the same time, it's like I don't want to be mean and foil all the DM plans, but if I can get away with some really cool like badassery stuff, I'm gonna try.
All about
You
the
know?
shenanigans. A
All
friend of
about it.
ours dubbed themselves the immersive power gamer. And
Ooh.
like so like you can be both. Like it does, you know, being a min maxer and power gaming isn't mutually exclusive from story and role playing. Like you can connect the two, and sometimes I build characters based off of mechanics, and other times I build them off of story, right? And it just depends on like what caught my eye at that particular time. Sometimes I just want to do a particular trick,
Yeah.
and like I
Yep.
mean, I think I was able to use it one time, like in the whole campaign that we're doing for Curse of Strahd, and it was like I'm a artificer battlesmith with a you know, with the steel defender. So I took mounted combat so I could ride it because I'm small, and I just wanted to be able to be like, you know, make something that attacks my mount attack me instead, and then have the mount use their reaction to give it disadvantage. And it literally came up. It's come up like one time.
Amazing. But the payoff of like I've waited so long for
Yeah,
this to happen and then it does. Hopefully it happens successfully
yeah, yeah.
and they
So,
don't still end up hitting you. But
but
that's yeah,
but
that's a
then
lot of
like
fun.
from there, like a lot of stuff were built around it and had a lot of fun. Like, you know, that character. You know, I call them a Tinker Knight, and they ride a
I love
mechan. They
that.
would ride in the pouch of a mechanical kangaroo. So, you know, and like
That's
the backstory
amazing.
that somewhere there's a whole battalion of those guys that
Oh,
do
so
that.
cool.
You know, so like yes, you can do things for mechanical reasons, but then you know figure out like, well, what's the story behind that? Why is that like that? And that's it. Like to me, that can be a lot just as much fun.
Talk about a formidable foe, a mechanical kangaroo. Like a kangaroo will mess you up in
Yeah,
real
like
life.
I learned stuff, you know, from playing that character. Like there was a lake, and I was like, can kangaroos swim? Even though it's not really a kangaroo, but I was like, can kangaroos swim?
Let's look it up.
I started googling, like I typed in kangaroo, and it was like kangaroo. Will a kangaroo drown you? I'm like what? Like all you do is type in kangaroo. So apparently, like if you see a kangaroo, like I wanted to Google, can kangaroos swim? But I didn't even get that far. And it's like, will they drown you? And which sidetracked me. Like turns out they're actually very good swimmers.
Yeah.
They'll wait in the water for you. And if you ever see that, don't go in the water
Don't
because they're
go in
gonna
the
drown
water.
you.
Yep.
Because it's the kangaroo thing to do. I don't know.
I mean, most of my kangaroo knowledge comes from Winnie the Pooh, and I know that's not accurate, but but I think they're a cute mom and like kid combo that are super
Yeah, yeah.
loving, and that's I mean,
And then you see some of them, and they look like aliens. Like
oh my
they're like
god,
completely ripped. They've got these
yoked.
like claws and
They're terrifying. I'm very glad to not live in a region or country where they exist. I could see
yeah.
them at a zoo if I happen to go out in the publics.
Nature's messed up, and the cute, some of those cute animals are the worst.
Yeah.
Like I saw this footage from a zoo, and I guess they had the monkeys close to the otters,
Ooh.
and the monkey like fell in the water, and all the otters just jumped on it and drowned it.
Drown it.
And like another monkey's like trying to pull it out, but it was over.
Yep.
Because
Yep.
otters are adorable, but they're also dicks.
They are, and they're very family like
Mm.
based. Like if one thing is happening to an otter, like the
Yeah.
troop, the I don't know, the clutch, the gang. I don't know what the proper term
Whatever they're
is.
called. Yeah, a group of them is
Whatever the
called.
group of them is called will just like out of nowhere they'll hear the little chips and the yips and they'll just flood and they're formidable little cutie pies.
Yeah, yeah. If one otter rolls initiative, they all do.
Yeah, they're definitely they act as swarm. They get pack tactics. And like you were saying about like googling and researching, I I am currently tonight, my game tonight, I'm really excited about because it's the third part of this epic combat. We've had 3 sessions, or 2 sessions so far. This is going to be hopefully the last one, where we had been fighting these things, and there were these teleports that opened, and these kind of like skeleton primordial scorpion looking things came through these portals, and they started attacking like all over this big town and city. And as you like killed them, they would explode, and they'd have like a poison or an acid splash effect. So like there were lots of deck saves and stuff like that.
So
And then they also had a poison spray. And so this is my barbarian druid character. I'm looking up because I just got to a level where I can summon a large amount of woodland creatures to help. So I'm like, what are the natural predators to scorpions? And it's like opossums. And I was like, okay, giant possums. That's not on the list. What else is there? And I'm like, giant owls. I summon 8 giant owls to do nothing for us, but hopefully save people in the town.
Yeah.
And getting to roll like 16d6. I don't even have that many dice. I was just like, all right, D&D Beyond. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 16. They do 180 something. Okay, we're gonna do that every turn, and some of them are gonna take damage because they are exploding as they're dying. And it was just like this random thing where it's like, I did not know that owls like messed up scorpions that much, but we're learning things, guys. We're learning real life
they do.
stuff. Yeah, I've always wanted an owl as a pet. Like the little tiny ones that like hop. Like,
yeah.
Oh, they're so cute. But you have to have like a falconer's license in order to have those.
Yeah, it turns out they're also like dumb.
Yeah.
They're associated with wisdom, but they're not that smart. And also they like to kill ravens and crows. And they don't like they just rip their heads off and leave them.
Yeah, it's not for any like actual particular like food or things like that. It's like, no, this is my territory.
But apparently also like ravens will gang up on owls and try and take them out. And definitely if they find the nest, they will take out the young.
Yeah, they will pluck through those eggs, and for sure. It's really interesting how just birds in general. I've always loved birds. I've had many types of birds throughout my life. Small like lovebirds as well as like larger parrots. I had an African gray. I was just like, his name was Hamlet. So cool. And their intelligence levels, but also like the different capabilities that they have for like their sight, how many more like cones and rods that they have, and how many more colors that they see compared to people is just completely fascinating. In Southern California, we have a lot of red-tailed hawks and some falcons as well. And just like I remember growing up in school learning about like desert biology and like how fast falcons can dive.
Yeah.
And just like the overall like sight and capabilities of like the different types of eagles was always something super, super fascinating.
There's one of the falcons. Terrifying. The one falcon doesn't actually use its talons to like a bird. It dive bombs them and punches them and breaks their neck.
Yeah, they use their fists, not their talons. They just like turn themselves into a little missile, and then they break their spine.
Yeah, they hit it at like almost 200 miles an hour.
And then they're just like walking over, picking it up, eating. It's like, if there were ever like things that could, you know, the Honey I Shrunk the Kids type of situation where like an animal got blown up out of proportion, birds by far would be absolutely terrifying. But insects and bugs, man. Whew. Like, I don't have an issue with insects and bugs, but the idea of giant ones, nope. Nope.
Yeah, you know, Doug manages our website for us, and he always talks about the giant centipede in the monster manual, and like, and it's not even really that big. Like, I think it's like, I don't know, like 3 foot or whatever. Yeah. But that's still like, that's a lot of creepy legs.
If you can imagine a golden retriever size centipede just like coming at you.
Yeah.
Like, first off, they're very fast, like as just a centipede. Like, No.
Yeah.
You can't get away from it.
It
can climb
is
everything.
creepy.
Yeah. So glad in large spells.
So the skeletal scorpions,
Yeah.
Were they scorpions made out of bone, or were they
No, they
undead
were just like
scorpions?
they weren't actual scorpions, but they looked like scorpions.
Okay.
So our DM will kind of switch between Tailspire and then like his actual minis and battle cams like that he
Uh-huh.
has in his studio because it's all still remote. We're playing through Discord and everything, and so when it's very large combat stuff and like all of the pieces, he likes to use the Tailspire worlds that he builds, because it's kind of like, I don't know if you remember SimCity or The Sims back in the day. Like building the homes and stuff was one of my favorite things, and he really enjoys that too. So he's building like the towers and the taverns that we normally associate and are like hanging out in, and all of being able to just like drag and drop pieces and delete them really fast in the computer is super convenient. And I'm like, anything that makes your job and
Yeah.
storytelling easier, absolutely do, because we get to have this amazing like theater of the mind experience in addition to like the hours that you're putting in building this digital world for us. So yeah, they looked like they were scorpion like carapaces. That's
Yeah.
the word. But not actual like scorpion stats. They were just this like from a different plane or dimension that the all of these portals had opened up. Some really evil dudes were like trying to mess us up. We had to fight a couple of dragonborns that were, and they rode in on wyverns, and so like it was, we were out of our league like from the beginning. We did not know what was coming, and tonight above our heads as we're running around trying to like finish up our battle and kind of escape and save townfolk, there is a black ancient dragon that is colliding with our friend, which is a red ancient dragon that we had like found as an egg and had raised and all this stuff. And through alternate magical means, his growth and aging accelerated because he was growing in this kind of like pocket dimension.
Yeah.
Um, so they're like colliding above us, and he's telling us to get out as quick as possible. But we also have a little bit of an army that's like coming down the hill, right? Cannons and rifles and all of this stuff. So me as a player, I'm like, I think we can take him. I'm pretty sure we can't, but part of me really wants to at least try and see if any of us are gonna die tonight. But yeah, it's very high stakes, and it's really funny. Like, again, none of this is all just fun. This is all just story and make believe. But we've like spent so much time and energy like becoming these characters that the emotional attachment that you have like is so strong. Like we don't want to see our halfling cleric like get hurt because like her character is just like this sweet, caring, like very mothering to everybody. So it's like if she goes down, all of our characters are just gonna lose their minds and be like, we gotta
Yeah.
get to her and save her, you know? So it's like that emotional feeling that you see in movie theaters when like Captain America summons Mjolnir for the first time, and he has that moment and he saves Thor like as he's fighting Thanos, and the whole audience like erupts and explodes because you've seen like this progression, and you have all the little Thor and Captain America and Iron Man jokes about how nobody's worthy, and then
Yeah.
all of a sudden he is. Like I get goosebumps still just like thinking about like that scene because it was so well written.
Yeah.
Having the writer's side of that standpoint, of that feeling of like this is the stuff that we created, and then we are now getting to act it out. If our characters get that heroic moment and it pays off, or the flip side, they try to have that heroic moment and worst case they end up dying, like the emotional investment that we've given to this world, this story, this game, each other as a group and players and our DM, it's it's real. It's legitimate stuff. And it's the thing that I was not expecting, you know, or I had no idea about a year and a half, 2 years ago when I actually started playing for the first time. Like I really was stepping into it thinking of it as a game where you know, are role playing and there is this interaction, but the emotional attachment and the sense of community and the friendships that you establish and develop along the way, even people that I've never met in person that are on the other side of the country, you know, in different time zones that we've been playing together now for a long time, like that friendship that develops is so tangible and so legitimate and real, because we're not only talking about the stuff that's going on in the games, we're checking in with each other, like, how are things going with your real life, like, your grandpa passed away, like, how are you, like, how can we support you as friends, as human beings, like, how can we be empathetic and, like, be there for you. Had no clue that that was part of it. And it's like, in my opinion, is one of, like, the most magical things about D&D. And it's that it's not just rolling dice and, you know, swinging swords and casting spells.
Yeah.
It's the human element that you create and the bond along the way.
Yeah, you build these bonds, and like researchers are finding that like when people tell stories about playing their D&D characters in their games, it's like they experience it from a first person. It's not like watching a movie or
Yeah.
reading a book. When we talk about the game and the things we're doing, it's like me,
Remember
my
when we did
character.
this? Yeah.
Yeah, it's like we fought the dragon.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's completely different. So, a couple questions. Good times, bad times. Wants to know if you're familiar with the Warhouse Game Store off of Willow and Magnolia in Long Beach.
Oh, yes. I've driven by. I've never been in. It was kind of like on my way to that first like in studio game that I was a part of. It was in that
Yeah.
area. So I've seen the sign and I've like driven by, but I've not gone inside of it, unfortunately.
And Brian wants to know more about Tailspire. Uh,
Oh, Tailspire. It's basically a 3D world generator. That you can. I don't know how much it costs. I've never used it myself, but
mhm.
in our Discord, our DM, when he's building out the world and everything that's in it, he actually will stream as he's building stuff, and he'll just do like little chats. Anybody that like is in the Discord can like come into the room, and as he's building stuff he can, talk about the user layout or the UI, for how the program works. But if people are also wanting to just talk about the game itself, it's a very a teach, learn, play type of experience. We're always like just talking about fun ways. There's like the tavern chat and stuff like that. But it's really good as far as like 3D graphics and rendering, solid textures, like little animations that you can use for like water and wind and the trees. Like they'll rustle if you give them that bit of animation to it. And you can literally like fly around in the space and put your camera, your viewpoint from anywhere. So if you want to be down low looking up at the dragon that you're fighting, you can put all of your characters lined up in their position and then adjust your camera. So it almost gives you like a director of photography capability and aspect, that's one of those additional things that you can add to the experience. As the rangers talking about pulling back their bow and they fire the arrow, you can zoom the camera from their shoulder up towards where it like hits the dragon in their shoulder.
Yeah.
Like, it's just one more of these like over the top creative elements that, because of the digital world and because of kind of a lot of things moving to remote play, there's a lot more online play now than there was a year or two ago.
There was
The
another one. I keep forgetting the name of it that was on Kickstarter. Not that it feels like not that long ago. That is kind of similar to that, except for it also has the virtual people. Like you have a virtual avatar where you're like
Yeah.
standing around the table. Also, the battle map. Uh,
Wow. Okay. There was another one that I was playing with, where they actually have multiple. You sit around a virtual table, and you
yeah,
can see like each other's hands, and you can all have your own individual views.
yeah.
Tabletop Simulator. That was the other one, and they do multiple styles of games. So you can basically sit down and play Monopoly in Tabletop Simulator.
This one was
It's pretty
specifically for
fun.
RPGs.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's a lot of like that stuff that's coming out, and we're getting more and more of it. One of the mapping programs that had come out was Dungeon Alchemist, and it's like
Ooh.
basically like you draw rooms by shape, and then you're like, is this a kitchen? Is this in a tomb? And it would just then AI would just populate it, and they were like 3D.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, this looks amazing.
This is the future.
Yeah, yeah.
This is making things so fast. AI is it's so good.
I
I don't know if you watched the
I don't. I'm not
YouTube
even gonna
channel.
want a body before too long. I'm just gonna want to be a stream of consciousness.
There's a YouTube channel called Corridor Crew, and they're based out of Los Angeles. They do a lot of visual effects stuff, and they just released a video where they took different 3D renderings of people,
Uh,
or like cartoon characters or things like that. They plugged it into an AI program, and then that AI program tried to create what that animation would look like as a real person. So like adding skin texture, like adjusting the proportions to make it look more humanistic. And some of the stuff that they did was like marble statues, like the David statue. Like what would that look like if that statue was a real person? It was weird. It was because it would
yeah.
still have like the coloration of the marble, but it would have skin texture and wrinkles and like actual animated eyes like that were kind of alive. It was amazing. I love
Yeah,
technology
I
so
mean,
much.
I don't. I have mixed feelings about the things we're doing with AI and robots. I'm like, this is
True.
so cool, and also this is going to be our downfall.
We have been warned. Hollywood and movies have been trying to warn us against this for a long time. So it is our own faults. We know what we're getting into.
One of my friends was showing, like, shared a bunch of videos on Facebook, I think, and I was just like, yeah, sure, that automated robotic kitchen seems cool until you're in whatever's being cooked.
Once the machines wake up,
Yeah. And also, you'll see the different things where they're testing the robots, and we're just complete dicks to them. Like we're kicking them and knocking them over, and it's like,
this
yeah,
remember they have data logs and hard drives of what you've done.
yeah.
They might not be able to feel pain, but they know acts of like
Violence and
aggression.
aggression.
Yeah,
You're like, why is there a robot uprising? And then they start just playing the feeds of all the test footage.
yeah, yep. No, that's fair.
Maybe throw
That's
some test crash dummies in
just
there as well. You know.
like, oh,
Oh, we're terrible
yeah.
at things.
But then you also see the ones that like Disney is using for like the Avengers like workshop in California Adventure, where they have like the robots that are swinging and doing like trapeze acts
Oh
that
wow.
totally not safe for humans to do. So robots dressed in Spider-Man costumes that can literally adjust and change through like gyroscopic
I have not seen
sensors.
that, and that is cool.
So amazing.
Eventually, we're gonna get to real steel, where we're just gonna have robots that battle each other. They're boxing and
BattleBots.
yeah.
Yeah, I can't wait. I'm so excited. Like there's so much potential, but also at the same time, absolutely terrifying.
Yes.
Totally terrifying. If that gets into the wrong hands and the codes are like, nope,
You mean humans?
weaponized. Yeah, yeah. Or self-actualization, and they're in their hands.
Yeah. Then they're
Then
like,
we're in
yeah,
for
we need to shake off this plague on this planet, humanity.
yeah. It's a cancer. But we have a good time. We play RPGs and stuff.
There's another YouTube channel that did they have AI like running D&D games or something.
No way.
Yeah, like I forget what it is. I watched a little bit of it, but so the AI is creating the adventure and feeding it to like the DM, and like they have a person DMing it. They don't tell the players.
That is so cool. I have to
Yeah.
absolutely look that up. Oh my gosh. That when you think about all the source material, Tolkien, and even if you're like not going into just like the fantasy realm, like if you look at just like Star Wars as like source material and just all of the books and all of the movies that have been cataloged and archived,
Tabletop Time. That's the group that did it.
definitely looking it up. Um, if you look at all of that and you can plug that into an AI machine and it finds all of like the ways that story, plot, you know, progression moving forward and developing a story is done, like writing that program and writing that code, I have no idea how to do it. I think it's absolutely mind blowing. But the fact that it is possible and can be done to just create an insane campaign in episodic just like that with a click of a button once the AI program is coded and designed, like huge, huge. Oh, we want to randomize it up and make it a little bit more chaotic. Cool. Adjust that slider to a bit more random. Adjust that
Yeah.
slider to a bit more chaotic and not so much on the lawful good side. And now all of your encounters are gonna be a little bit more, ugh, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
If you think about like when you step into a video game and you have your character creation, like you adjust the width of the eyes or the size of the nose or the broad of the shoulders, like just by those little sliders. And you think about like, okay, now that in our campaign we have all these different points, we want maybe a little bit more romance for our characters, or we want we're gonna do a heist theme, so we want a little bit more of an Ocean's 11 type of vibe for these characters. That is really cool.
I
There's
mean,
potential for
it's
that.
gonna happen eventually. It's probably not that far. And then if you think about it, like the crossover between tech nerds and D&D nerds, like is super high. So someone's gonna like be like they're gonna do it as a pet project.
Yeah. And then they're going to be like, hey, we have this idea. We're launching it on Kickstarter if you want to be a part of it. Our goal is $750,000, but oh, we raised 11 million.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, no, that already happened. Never mind. That was something else.
Yeah. Well,
Oh,
yeah,
man.
it is crazy. Did you see the Avatar RPG?
No.
Yeah.
Wait, wait,
So
wait.
like,
Like as a game
yeah, they're
based
killing
off
it.
of Last Airbender.
Yeah. It was at like 7 million or something last time I looked.
Oh my god.
Let's
So
see.
I'll be honest. Avatar Last Airbender was a little bit past my age range of growing up. My youngest sister, who's 12 years younger than me, she
Yeah,
was very much into that series and loved it.
yeah. No,
And
I'm the
I've heard
same.
great things. I've heard great things about it. Um, I say I watched the movie, but like there was so many things that like people hated about the movie because it was so off from like the actual series. But everything that I hear about the series is how forward thinking, advanced, and like based around real life issues that it was super parallel to just real world incidences, which is great because you get to see these characters go through a lot of the stereotypes, racism, like all of these different things that kids will need to go through. And when they have positive examples for like how they can deal with those situations in through these characters, I think it's a very powerful tool in that like cultural and society like education for kids. I want to get in and probably should watch that entire series, but that's really cool that they're making an RPG game off of it.
Yeah, it's at 63,000 backers with 3 days left, and
Holy cow.
almost $7.7 million.
Jeez.
And it hasn't hit the last 48 hours yet. So
Yeah, that final push, they end up making a lot
I
in that
mean,
final
it
push.
obviously it's a huge property, but I mean,
Yeah.
it's still a lot of money. Not D&D game.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I love seeing that stuff just because it shows me the potential for the industry as a whole, and to know that we're not even close to reaching our full potential yet, and it's just going to keep expanding.
Still just getting started. And again, that's that topic of IP,
Yeah,
intellectual property. Like if you have something good and you know the right people and you have the connections to, get it in front of something, or you just make really great content and you have an awesome Kickstarter campaign, like it can go from just being this idea and dream to being fully funded, in a matter of a few weeks,
it is the
So
golden age of RPGs.
yeah,
So
definitely. Ugh,
very,
I'm so glad I got into this. I can't even call it a hobby. Like at this point, it's a
it's a way of
lifestyle.
life.
Yeah, it
It's a
absolutely is.
lifestyle.
Yeah, when you find yourself spending way more money than you're making from it, like
Yeah.
it is no longer just a thing that you're playing. Like it's absolute passion. You know, it's great.
So we're just past the hour mark. Final thoughts before we head on out.
Final thoughts, man. I'm enjoying being multiple players so much. I love the culture and the community and the inclusivity of just everybody that I meet that's involved in their own way, and meeting more storytellers and more creators is just so much fun and such a passion of mine. I think if you are like hesitant or just like starting to like learn about it, that you just need to do it. You just need to dive in, find some friends, like if you know people that are already playing. If you don't, find a game online. You'll probably go through a few, before you find a group of people that really click well, because communication is like a huge thing. Like really have that session zero so that you know what you're getting yourself into. Like expectations are kind of like set ahead of time. That way you're not like, well, this isn't like Critical Role, or this isn't like, Dungeons and Daddies, or whatever, whatever the thing that you would be comparing it to.
Every group's a different experience.
Every group's a different experience, and you're going to get different things from different groups of people. So just always remember to be open-minded and have fun. Like it's a game still, guys. Like it is fun. It's supposed to be fun. So definitely do that. Big thank you to having me on again, Dave. I love talking to you. It's such a good time. And anytime that you want to be part of the General Adventuring Company again, you're always welcome. Guests at our table. If you are ever running any games and you need guest players, I love doing those things. Just overwhelming gratitude. This has been a lot of fun. This conversation specifically, but also just
wait a minute, is it today your birthday?
Experience. No, my birthday was the 16th.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was not long ago.
Yeah, happy belated
really
birthday then.
Thank you. I went under the radar, and I went to lunch with like 3 friends. We got slices of pizza.
Low key for sure.
Yeah, super low key birthday. It was great.
Well, thanks for coming on. Appreciate it. It's been great chatting with you and catching up again. And until next time, everyone, stay nerdy.